Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well today, whenever today is. This is Tom in Los Angeles, and I've seen and enjoyed very much many videos going around in this period of time about the Midyear Freakout, so-called, for 2022. So since we are on the 12th of July, I thought I'd contribute with my own version of this tag, and hopefully you're going to enjoy mine as well. So let's get started. Number one, what's the best book you've read so far in 2022? So overall, I think I've read 27 books this year, including everything, including my spiritual readings and my readings about Dante. So there's not a lot outside of those. But the best book I've read in 2022 so far is The Idiot by Dostoevsky. I read it in Italian, L'Idiota, and loved it. It's almost a testament to Dostoevsky's greatness that one of his maybe not best books, because it's a book that is not as perfect and tight and completely put together like maybe Crime and Punishment is, or The Brothers Karamazov, but still is the best read that I had this year. And some passages, some moments, some chapters are divine, are absolutely sublime. The structure, and it's not only me saying this, but critics and everybody else notice that we can say this book is kind of a structural mess, but it's also because of how it's been written and how many challenges Dostoevsky had during the writing. So, for somebody who writes like this, we forgive many things. I found real intense sparks of genius, especially when it comes to Prince Mishkin, the main character, the protagonist, and something that looks like the consequences of his epilepsy, his condition. Particularly high, extraordinarily high emotional intelligence that separates him from not only the other people in general, but almost from the reality that the other people live in. And yet he can connect with people at a level that no one else can. So Dostoevsky plays a lot with this, and it's just wonderful. The Idiot also seems to me not quite perfect, despite being a great novel, because in the protagonist, Dostoevsky, he stated that he wanted to create a perfectly good man, somebody who is pure goodness, and he did that. But in a sense, given that this guy is a human being, is not divine, he's not something above or beyond a human being, necessarily the character doesn't quite completely work out, because he is very insecure, he is extremely confused in many moments, and he completely lacks any kind of assertiveness. So it reminds me of the experiment that the author of the Last Temptation of Christ, a Greek author, did with the character, with the personage, let's say, in his fiction of Jesus Christ. If you don't consider the divine aspect of the personality of Christ, which allowed him to be perfect goodness, there's going to be a problem. There's going to be a problem with the character himself, because you cannot just, it's impossible to remove sin from a human being, as simple as that. It's impossible to have a person, a human being, who is without sin. Question number 2, what's the best sequel you've read so far in 2022? I have no doubts about this one, and it's actually one of my 4 Folio Society editions that I own. I bought it last year, and the best sequel I've read is The Sword of the Lictor. That's the 3rd installment in the tetralogy, The Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe. And this is the Folio Society edition of it, which contains the 3rd and 4th books. I'm reading this as a buddy read with a lot of booktube friends, including Noah, Christy, Alexa, and many others. And we're really enjoying it so far, despite the complicated mechanism that this novel is. Very original, very, very original. What is a new release you haven't read yet but want to? So I have two that excite me very much, and I just bought them a couple of weeks ago, so they're really new releases. The first one is Ed Yong's An Immense World. Pulitzer Prize winning author of I Contain Multitudes, which is a book you might have heard about. He wrote this book about, in general, animal senses, how animal senses reveal the hidden realms around us. The earth teems with sights and textures, smell and tastes, electric and magnetic fields, but every kind of animal, including humans, is enclosed within its own unique sensory bubble, perceiving but a tiny sliver of our immense world. With that little brief preface, I was hooked immediately. I hear that this author, I haven't read anything by him so far, but he writes in a very engaging way, which is a value add. So I'm really looking forward to reading it. I'm excited. The other one that is also a recent publication, and it's kind of a sensation because it's being very successful. I've been inspired to buy this one by Rose at Scully Dudley in Brighton, and it's called Night Crawling by Lila Motley. This is the American cover. If I remember well, I saw the cover that Rose showed us in her video, and it's completely different. I think it's a pink cover. Maybe I don't dislike this one, but maybe I like the British one a little better. And this novel is about a young black woman who walks the streets of Oakland, California, and she gets into a lot of trouble. What attracts me about this story is the fact that I know Oakland a little bit. I know the degrade that Oakland is suffering and has been suffering for many years now. And it sounds like this novel will dive into that kind of underbelly of Oakland. And I've heard many great things about it, so I'm excited to read it. Question 4. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Honestly, I don't follow the market as closely as to know what is going to come out that I would really like to read, especially because I have so much backlog in my to-read list that I don't know. The answer, if it's a book, I don't know. I maybe can give a cop-out answer, which is a movie. In December of this year, 2022, they should release the Guillermo del Toro new version of Pinocchio, which is a motion capture technique movie. I've seen a little, as they call it, teaser, and not only is wonderful from a graphic design point of view, but I really love Pinocchio, and in particular, knowing that the original Italian story by Carlo Collodi from more than 100 years ago is a very dark story. It was meant kind of for kids, but it's really an adult story because there are many horror elements to it. I've never seen, let's say, an authentic and genuine rendition of that darkness of the original Pinocchio in a movie, in a kind of cinema rendition. And I'm hoping that Guillermo del Toro went into that darkness without any restraint, which generally he's able to do. So that's my hope. Number 5, your biggest disappointment. My biggest disappointment, you probably won't care too much because it's an Italian book that I don't think is going to be translated. But if it is going to be translated, don't read it. It's called Spatriati by an author called Desiati. And Desiati, he actually only last week won the first prize of the Premio Strega, the most prestigious Italian literary award. Many people, including myself, had almost a gasp of shock and surprise because knowing the book and knowing that it's written beautifully, but it's really empty, very empty, and very mediocre. There's nothing about it. If they ever decide to translate it into English, you know that you should not buy it. That's my recommendation, at least. Number 6, your biggest surprise. I have to be honest, I wasn't surprised particularly by any of my reads this year. including Dostoevsky and all the other ones. So skipping to the next one. Question number 7, your favorite new author? I'm thinking of John Crowley for sure. I was very lucky to be able to, and honored to be able to interview him with Jordan Parsons here on my channel twice. The first time about his book Ka, and the second time about his new book called Flint and Mirror. So Ka is this book, fantasy book. I don't read a lot of fantasy, but this is exceptional, and that was recommended to me by Jordan Parsons. And the protagonist of this book is a crow who lives through time, but with a very strong sense of realism, and you will learn a lot about the life of crows by reading this book as well. So I absolutely recommend it. And this other one, which is the latest one that John Crowley published, is Flint and Mirror. And if you want to hear a little bit more, we published an interview with him on my channel with Jordan only a month ago. So that might be interesting. Question number 8, your newest fictional crush. I'm gonna skip over this one. I don't have a fictional crush. Question number 9, newest favorite character. Your newest favorite character, I could say that it's the crow from Ka, the novel by John Crowley. I definitely think he's my favorite character so far. Number 10, book that made you cry. Generally no book really can make me cry aside from the Divine Comedy and the scriptures, so it's always there. A book that made you happy, the Divine Comedy and the scriptures. Question number 12, the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. So this is it. This is a book that's called Hockney, about the work of David Hockney. This is a Taschen publication, and if you don't happen to know who David Hockney is, who's still alive, still working, painting, he's a painter. He's British, and he lived in Los Angeles for I think most of his life, and the fact that he lived in Los Angeles, I think, reflects a lot in his work, because his paintings are full of bright colors. They are paintings that make me happy just by looking at them. And maybe you've seen some of his most famous ones, but without being an art specialist or anybody who really knows painters, I really enjoyed this book because not only it shows us in the prints of his many of his major works, but it also gives us a little bit of a story of his life and the various phases that he went through during his life. A genius when it comes to colors, and these are colors that really shine in your eyes and in your heart. I heard that, and I saw on the internet that recently, despite his old age, he's still working a lot with iPad paintings. He's using the iPad to make beautiful paintings, and as simple as an iPad painting is when you think about it, because you're using fundamentally your fingers and a couple of basic functions, somebody with his experience and genius is able to create wonderful things even with that type of tool. And if I have a chance, I'm gonna show a couple of them at the end of this video. And finally, question 13, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? This is always the most sensitive one, because all of us have incredible TBR lists. I also have a really terrible one, and I can show you a couple of the ones, aside from these 2 new publications that I presented, that I just received and I would like to read this year. These are some of the books that I also would like to read by the end of the year. This is Our Lady of the Nile by Scholastic Mukasonga. Recommendation by Rose Scully Dandling, and I already read another one by this author and I really enjoyed it. This is Per Lagerkvist Barabba. It's in Italian, but it's been translated. It's a fictional history of Barabbas, the gospel character. Then the famous Abolition of Man by C.S. Lewis. Then a book that the author very kindly sent to me as a gift, and I'm really late in reading it, which is this one, America and the Cult of the Cactus Boots, a Diagnostic by Philip Friedenberg. I know it's a lot of fun. I know some of you have already read it and enjoyed it, but unfortunately I haven't had the chance to read it yet, but I definitely want to read it by the end of this year. And speaking about other booktube authors, or maybe author book as they call it, this is another book that I would love to read and finish by the end of the year. The title is You Cannot Kill a Swan, the love story of Luba and Ivan, by Ursula Hartline, who is one of my booktube friends, and she has been following following the Dante project that I've been working on, and in my videos we've been interacting a lot about Dante, and I know already that this is going to be a great novel, so this is another one that I'm really looking forward to. Thank you so much for your time that you took to listen to this list, and have a great day.